Okay, this is encouraging. Thank you so much for coming. I know this was supposed to be meant to the last, but I'm going to thank you anyways. But hello, everyone, and welcome to the day 4 of Cisco Live. Hopefully, all of you have had a good time here. But let me begin by introducing myself. My name is Nikita Shashidhar, and I'm the product manager here at Cisco Meraki's SD-WAN team. So, in this session, I'm going to be talking about how the Meraki SD-WAN solution is going to make life easier for IT and network administrators. But before that, I have a question for all of you. How many of you have seen network downtime in the recent past? Please raise your hands. Okay, that's quite a few of you over here. Okay, so raise your hands again if you know how much it costs for an enterprise for when you experience a network downtime. No one in the audience? Any guesses? Okay, not audible, but okay. So in the recent study by IDC, it has been shown that the mean cost for a network downtime for an enterprise is $250,000 per hour. Hopefully, all of you had this number in mind and not surprised. And this number can be higher for larger organizations and can even reach millions of dollars. So the question is, what can we do, right? And most of the downtime that we see is because of non-reachability to applications hosted in the cloud or your data center. And the majority of reason is because that we rely heavily on the wide area network. As an SD-WAN user yourself, most of our apps, majority of them, are either in the public cloud, so they break out directly to the internet, and few of them may be backhauled to your data centers. So as an IT admin, you want to ensure that you have optimal productivity at all times to make sure that you keep up the performance excellent, to maintain uptime, and make sure that you have tools to ensure that it meets your network's SLAs. So some of the questions that you might be asking yourself is that, what are the tools that I can get right now that will help me maintain my network uptime? Is it easy enough? How can I make it easy for my team and so that they can help deploying this in the cloud? So for that, no matter what your issues are, it always follows these 3 steps. It is identify, analyze, and correct. Identifying, it is knowing that there is an issue, that issue exists. Analyzing is understanding and using this data to ensure that you have what it takes to understand the problem at hand. And correct is resolving the issue at hand. So it is very key for all of us to have the tools that follows these 3 steps. And here at Meraki, we want to make sure that we accelerate whatever steps we take. We accelerate our tools and our capability to move towards the correct action. So what I want to do here is walk you through an example. So this is a typical path flow that originates from your end client device that can either be connected to your access point or connected to your switch. It goes through the entire path to your edge device and then out to the cloud. The visibility from your end client device till your MX, which is the edge device from the Meraki solution, is available through the Meraki dashboard. But once it leaves the edge device and goes out to the cloud in the wild, it is difficult for IT and network administrators to understand what is happening and take control over it, because this is beyond our control. So what happens is troubleshooting becomes really hard, and it becomes important at the same time. So I want to introduce to you this tool that helps you manage this and get to the state of automation. So this is the SD-WAN solution. So before that, let's actually take an example. So we've all been on those calls where we've had users complain of like not a good performance or a subpar performance and non-reachability to an application. So let's take Office 365. I don't know if all of you have heard, in North America, we've been having some outages on Office 365. So it is key that as a team that we identify these issues beforehand and prevent it from happening. Or even when it happens, that you have the visibility and the data it takes to resolve the issue. So let's imagine that you're on a call with the users, and the user calls in saying, hey, I'm having problem reaching to Office 365. So you find yourselves troubleshooting this problem. And when you're troubleshooting this problem, some of the questions that you ask yourself is, when did this start? Is this even a real issue? How long has this been going on? Is it just this client or other clients in the network also having the same problem? Is it just this application or other applications are also having the same problem? What are the devices that's connected in the network that might be contributing to this problem? And so on and so forth. These are all good questions. But do you have answers for them? Maybe and maybe not. So I will walk you through how this call would have gone if you had the Cisco Meraki's SD-WAN solution. Demo, please. OK, so what you're seeing on the screen here is the web app health landing page. As soon as you land on this page, you can quickly answer 2 questions. That is, which application is having a problem, and where in the application is the problem. Hence, being able to quickly identify the issue at hand. The web app health is aimed to monitor your critical applications. And you can do so by going into Configure Web Application and selecting the apps from the list of categories that we already have. If you don't see the apps that is already listed, you can add it using the Add Custom Application. You can give it a name. You can give it a URL. There is also a capability of you can also give it an IP address as well, and we will start monitoring the flows for you. Once you hit that, you can review the apps that you've selected. Once you've reviewed, you can hit Save. Upon saving, an app card is created for every individual application. Once we start seeing the flows, we will start giving you the data on the apps that you've created. Now you can see that the data is broken down into 3 main domains: LAN, WAN, and server. This is exactly where we want you to identify which domain you want you and your team to focus on, so you're not losing time helping to mitigate the issue quickly. So what is LAN over here? LAN is any flow that originates from your end client device up until your MX device. So the MX, for those of you who are not aware, it is the security appliance, and the software runs on that security appliance. WAN. WAN is the flows that leave the MX WAN interface and goes in the wild internet. And the server is the response of the end client device and the capability or the reachability of it to the application where the server is hosted. The server where the application is hosted. So I want to tell you that all of this visibility that you get is based off on passive flows. That means the user needs to be reaching or looking at the application or using the application at that time for us to give you analytics. Now, having said that, I want to talk to you about how are we really evaluating it? What metrics are we using to show the application problem? So we use 2 metrics. One is goodput, and the second one is response time. Goodput is associated with your LAN and your WAN, and that means it is the number of bits that you see on the LAN and the WAN interface after it has undergone loss and latency. And then the response time is the round-trip time from your end client device to your server and back. So these are the 2 metrics upon which we evaluate performances and give you performance measures. As you can see, the green check is good. You don't have to worry about it. Red X is there is a problem actively happening. And then we have a yellow exclamatory mark as well, which tells you that it is, it's getting into the poor performance state. It is currently in the poor performance state, and it might get to the bad state. So this is quickly being able to identify the issue at hand. However, this is a landing page. That means we have aggregated data across all your networks that's there in your Meraki dashboard. So the page after this will also give you a separated view of per network visibility, which you can also use to troubleshoot just per network to certain applications as well. So going back to the example, right? We started off with a user calls in, Office 365 has a problem. So you can see over here, Office 365, LAN and server is looking good, but WAN is having a problem. So if you click on the WAN, and it takes you to it says that the SF office is currently experiencing the WAN issue. So upon clicking, it takes you to the drill down page. This drill down page is where you will get the context around why the problem exists. So you can see there are several tabs. There's network, application, WAN, LAN, clients, server, domains, uplink. So it's broken down into where you want to focus your attention. Since our problem here is on WAN, we want to get to the WAN tab and look at more information there. Now, what you can also do is that this information that you see currently is aggregated information across all the clients that is behind the network. You can get specific to a client as well. So since we are on a call with one user, you can select that particular user, and the entire graph now replicates that user's behavior from that application on that network to Office 365. So it is very specific, and it gets granular and narrowed down to that particular user. So if you see on the WAN tab, we do have several metrics upon which we give you analytics. It's good put, response time is coming from the application side. We have WAN loss, we have WAN latency, and total network usage. Now, WAN loss and WAN latency isn't the total WAN loss and WAN latency that we're showing here on the entire network. It is, again, very specific to this client on this application trying to reach Office 365. So you can really get down to understanding what is the loss, because it varies depending upon how the client, which route the client is taking, and also from where in the network they are trying to access it. So it's really getting down to that specification. Now, in this example, you know that there are several areas where it has crossed below the threshold. Now, let's talk about thresholds. Thresholds is not an easy way that we can determine, because the network requirements are very different, right? So it's hard to say that this threshold is golden standard or is good enough for us to get a better understanding how the application behaves to a certain on a certain WAN link or wherever the application is hosted. So what I mean by that is thresholds are very specific to a given network depending upon the specification. Things like, what is the bandwidth that it is allocated? How many users are there in the network, right? How many applications, and what's the mix of user traffic that you see on that particular network? So it's hard as IT and network administrators to analyze what this threshold is and evaluate performances. So what we've done is we've made that easy for you. So we take this network data that is available to us on a per network basis and pass this to a machine learning language. And we call that at Meraki as smart thresholds. What this machine learning language does is it looks at past historical data at the app usage, and it evaluates based upon the entire network requirements, like what was how many clients actually reached out to this application at this given period? What was my bandwidth at that particular time? And evaluate those metrics against other networks in your organization and then give you a threshold. So this threshold, again, is very specific to a per network basis. That's the threshold that we show over here. So this absolutely gets better over time, and as we get more data, it gets better with the data being trained. But that's the machine learning algorithm that we use on this platform currently. So you can see there are certain areas that it has crossed below the threshold. That means those are the times when you could have seen not a good performance or worse performance. So let's take an example over here. In this particular, at this particular time, we've seen that it has crossed below the threshold, and the WAN loss is 2.09%, and the WAN latency is 1.6%. While it's not too high, you can get into situations when the loss and latency is greater than 20 to 30%. In that situations, you want to be able to identify if your network trying to reach the application is a part of a bigger outage. So for that, you can go to Insight and Internet Outages. Internet outages is our first integration with ThousandEyes. This is our bird's eye view where you can get the outage information of your services across the globe. So if you go into the last 1 hour, and if you check if any of your services is a part of this outage, then you know exactly where your problem is coming from. And so you can reach out to your particular service provider or your app service and understand why is it and help them mitigate this issue. So in this case, we have not seen that it's a part of the outage or the global service outages or performance issues that we're seeing. So in that case, what do? Now we want to make sure that it is specific to your network or to your region. To understand that better, you can go to Insight and WAN Health. WAN Health is a NOC view that aggregates your health of your network in your Meraki dashboard on one single page. So you can quickly identify how your networks that is deployed across the world is behaving at that particular time. So you can see that there are 4 banners: the good, down, poor performance, and high usage. These are real time. So anytime a network behaves badly, you can see the number on these banners go up. So you can quickly identify that there is an issue on this network and start resolving it immediately. And you can customize this view, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be that you look at this view all the time. We do have filters upon which you can look at some notorious networks that have constant disconnects every now and then. You can look at some ISP connections that is not the suboptimal, but you want to keep a tab on. So you can customize this view and make it a NOC view that your team can keep an eye out on all the times. But in this example, we've seen that the SF Office with Office 365 on the WAN link is having a problem, and hence we've landed up on this page. So over here, looking at that particular row, we see what kind of ISP they're using, what's the availability been over a period of time, the total usage and average throughput. I do want to mention that this is looking at the last 2 hours. You can customize this as well and go back in time and look at it at a very 15-minute granular window. So over the last 2 hours, we've seen what the total usage is, what the average throughput is, and the loss latency and jitter. You see that the loss is about close to 15%. So this is probably the reason why you're not seeing, or the user is not seeing that good of a performance issue. Performance on the application, and they're seeing an issue. So what you can do is, this is evidence enough that you can either take a screenshot, or even better, you can export this to a CSV and send this to a service provider to help you mitigate this issue sooner. Now, that's on the WAN loss side, right? But there can also be times when the entire bandwidth is being hogged up by other applications, and you want to be able to understand if that's one of the reasons why your user who's trying to reach Office 365 is having a problem. But let's take a step back before I get into that, to a time during pandemic. I know none of us want to go back there, but during pandemic, what happened is, we went from working at the office to working at home. So what this meant to all the IT and network administrators is that overnight, the number of networks multiplied. So you didn't have control to manage and get visibility from across all of these networks. So one of the things that also the IT and network administrators didn't know is that what is the network specifications across all of these home scenarios, or where the user is working from, like remote workplace, right? So in order to troubleshoot issues and make sure that they're still getting the optimal performance and that they can access the resources behind their data centers or in the cloud, they need to have tool to understand that they have the right bandwidth in order to have the application feed into this bandwidth and get the optimal, excellent performance that we have measured, or that we want to measure. So for that, we introduced the speed test tool. So within a click of a button, you can run the speed test across multiple networks and get the download and understand if the network is capable of handling that application flow at that particular time. I have been told that there are times when, especially when we were in the office, that there was a user who was trying to use the entire bandwidth because they were using a heavy resource application that they were trying to reach out from the cloud. And there was a meeting, that executive meeting happening at the same time. So because of that, there was constant disconnects. And as an IT administrator, it was difficult to identify who this client was and what kind of applications they were using. So what we've also done is we've introduced the top contributors to usage. So this information over here tells you which client is now using the majority part of the bandwidth and which applications are being accessed at that particular time that is contributing to this usage as well. So you as an IT administrators can understand, okay, if there is another client that is hogging up this experience, you can go to them, either ask them to turn it off, or you have capabilities within Meraki dashboard to create policies so you can limit the bandwidth as well. And not only that, we also give you the loss latency and jitter graphs. So in the case of any loss that happens, you can identify when and at what time did you start seeing this loss. And this is also another proof point that you can take to your service provider to understand, like, why has this been happening for maybe the last 2 hours, last day, last week, depending upon what time duration you're looking at. So whatever I've spoken so far has been a reactive approach, right? So this is like you're on a call, you're troubleshooting, and you have this information. While this is great, what you want to be is in a state of proactiveness. So you don't want to be sitting on a call with the user. You want to be able to resolve that issue even before you get that call. So for that, as our first step, we've introduced the Insight Alerts page. All of us know what alerts is. We're not a fan of alerts, but we want to make sure that we get alerted at the right time so that we can pay our attention to it and help the user get back to performing good. So for that, we have the web app health, where you can choose which applications you want to be notified on and how you want to be notified on. You can either get emails, or we have webhooks as well that you can integrate this to your tools such as ServiceNow, Slack, and get notified accordingly, and have your team, the team that is responsible for this, being notified as well. And the other thing that we've also done on WAN health is that we've customized the way you receive the alert. The network SLAs is very different for every network. And you don't want to be notified probably the same way across different issues and across different networks. So what I mean by that is, if you click on Add Alert, you can group these networks using network tags. And network tags is one of the most popular functionalities that we use within Meraki dashboard. So say you group all your critical networks using one tag. So once you select that tag and you hit Next, we have 4 types of alert configurations. Uplink status, that you can be notified when the entire WAN 1 or WAN 2 goes down. We have packet loss, we have uplink utilization, and we have uplink latency. But let's just look at packet loss. In packet loss, you can select which WAN you want to be notified on, WAN 1, WAN 2, or even cellular. And this is the interesting part, right? You can select your threshold. So it's not necessary that 10% packet loss on one is good enough for the other. So you as IT administrators can identify what these thresholds are and set it accordingly. So if you set it for 10%, that's great, but how long do you want this to happen before you're notified? Is it 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? So really giving you that window of how and when you want to be notified as well. So you can select this, set it accordingly, and then once you've done that, very similar experience, you can either be notified using an email or using a webhook as well. And once you've done that, you hit Next, you can review a selection and save it. Once you've saved it, you can get back to this page where you manage all your alerts across all your networks and different types of alerts at scale. You can get a quick view of it using the slide out panel, which tells you exactly what you've configured. You can even delete, edit, and even add everything from the same page. So this is a way that you can be a little proactive. While this is great, this is not where we stopped. We have also introduced something called the root cause analysis. taking a step into the proactiveness, right? So what root cause analysis feature does, and this is a screenshot that I wanted to show you of a recent issue that we came across. So root cause analysis looks and gives the context of what could have been the reason why you saw this particular problem. What is the evidence that we're collecting? What is the impact that has happened on your network? And what are some of the next recommended steps that you can take in order to resolve the issue? So as an example, we've seen an ISP issue on WAN. That means the WAN link is having a problem. And we've said the cause of the problem is maybe there is an ISP issue on your uplink 2 or your WAN 2. Our confidence is medium, and that's an important factor, right? So when we say it's low, medium, high, we are telling you how confident we are in giving you the context that this could be the root cause of why you're seeing an issue on the WAN. So that can help you trust us of like what are some of the recommended steps or the suggestions or even the cause that it can be an ISP issue. The next thing is evidence. So we tell you from where we're collecting this data and what we're using in order to evaluate this data. So we've seen in your event log that there's some poor connectivity events that are happening because of some WAN issues that we're seeing and WAN loss that we're seeing. And we tell you the impact as well. It's not maybe all your clients. There may be just 2 or 3 clients that are seeing this. So you can understand very quickly what the impact is and either look at the issue now or later. And then some of the next recommended steps, right? This is key because this is where we tie in different parts of dashboard on one single page. So we tell you what can you do on the Meraki dashboard to help resolve this issue, or we tell you to go and look, contact your ISP provider or get you to other pages to give you more context around the data as to why you're seeing this WAN loss, why is the ISP even having a problem. So honestly, there's like a lot of root causes that's there that we haven't looked at yet, but there are 6 root causes that we're currently looking at, but this is going to get better over time. And we want to feed this information into a machine learning algorithm so it can give you better predictions and better analysis as well. So with that, I really want to bring you back to what I started off and what we are offering in this product. There are 2 main portfolios, the web app health and the WAN health. App health gives you the end-to-end assurance story from your end client device to your application and the health of how the entire application performance or the reachability is looking like. And it mainly aims to monitor your critical applications. And your WAN health is one NOC view to monitor the health of all your networks across your organization. So let's end with where we started. Identify, analyze, correct. This is definitely the 3 key steps that we are taking to get to a state where we can accelerate these 3 steps with more intelligence, adding more intelligence into the platform and tighter integrations within Cisco and outside Cisco as well, so that the network can learn and remediate the issues at hand so that there's low or no downtime that you can see as network administrators as well. So what I want to really say is I've spoken about the Thousand Eyes integration, and I want to tell you that that's not where we're stopping. There is more to come, and I want to also tell you that we will be talking more about it in the coming few months, so please keep an eye out for it. But the last slide is, while you're keeping an eye out for it, keep this conversation going. If you want to learn more about what I've spoken and interested in understanding how this can work with your businesses and the tools that you currently have, you can reach out to the booth, which is SDW04 in the World of Solutions. I'm sorry, there's a D missing over there, but in the World of Solutions, and we can help answer those questions. Even better, try it yourselves. I think that's worked out really good for our Meraki customers. There are use cases that they come back to me and they tell me about, like, which I've not even spoken about during the demo or the pitch, and they would have, those are some use cases that kind of like help me understand how our products can help solve broader problems at hand as well. So please, start your free trial, and you can go to meraki.com/eval for that. And if I've not answered any questions here related to pricing or anything else on the technical questions, if you haven't answered, you can reach out to our Meraki rep, which is available at meraki.com/contact, and then you can understand more on this as well. So with that, right on time, hopefully all of you have enjoyed this session, and I will stick around here if you have more questions that I can help answer. But otherwise, thank you everyone, and hope you all have a good rest of the evening and a good weekend as well.